notice, and this is the typical copyright. We continue with mathematics syllabus for CSEC for 2018 to 2027. Schedule of videos: September 2024, that is this month. I'm hoping that I would have all 32 videos from section 1 published on YouTube. Then October next month, the 13 to 15 videos from consumer arithmetic, and so on. November sets, December measurement, that will take us to the end of the year. Beginning new year 2025, January statistics, then February algebra, March relations, functions, and graphs, April geometry and trigonometry, and finally May, by mid-May, vectors and matrices. As pointed out before, I have divided section 1 into 32 videos, all of which will be made available on YouTube in their entirety. So far we have covered all of these here, video 16, and now we are here at video 20, objective 8, part, that is here, part 2, we are here. The last video was part 1, where we looked at conversion between 12 and 24 hours clock. Now, in this video, we are looking at conversion within the metric system. If you find this video useful and interesting, please like and share. Like and share. You may also consider subscribing to this channel. After all, it doesn't cost you anything, and it means a lot to me. So, converting within the metric scales. The metric scales are based on powers of 10. So this makes it very easy to convert from one unit to another unit within the same scale. Example, mass or length. There are some prefixes that we need to be aware of. For example, if you look at this table, this here base, say we're talking about meters. Now if you have 10 meters, you will refer to that as decameter, dm. And of course, if you have 1,000 meters, you will refer to that as kilometers. It means 1,000, so that would be km. And if you have micrometer, which is smaller than a meter, it takes 1,000,000 micrometers to make a meter, then in that case, you would refer to that as micrometer. Now, these are some of the prefixes, and as you go from here higher up, the measurement gets larger. Kilo, of course, means 1,000, mega means 1,000,000, giga means 1,000,000,000, and so on. Down here, deci means 1/10, centi means 100th, milli means 1,000, micro, as we said just now, means 1,000,000th, and so on. Gets smaller when you come down. There is even more. You have going up from peta, you have exa, zeta, and iota, and then going down from pico, you have femto, atto, zepto, and yocto. So no, you don't have to learn all of these, but you do have to learn some, and these are the ones that you would have to learn: micro, milli, centi, deci, deca, hecto, kilo, mega, giga. You need to know what their symbols are and how many or what part of the base unit each one comprises. Before we go on, one little warning here. If you are dealing with computers, say information technology, 1 kilobyte is not 1000 bytes, as you may be misled by looking at this, but rather it is 1024 bytes, which is 2 to the 10th power, and neither is 1 megabyte 1 million bytes. Now this is for computers. It is rather 10 to the 20th power, which is actually this much more than a million. And 1 gigabyte is not 1 billion bytes. It is this much more than 1 billion, because we are using 2 to the 30th power. So just be aware of that. So if you buy a flash drive, let us say 16 gigabytes, that is what it will say. And because the manufacturer is using this conversion factor, they are dividing by 1 billion. But the operating system on your computers are not using this here. They are using these down here. So your computer OS will not divide by a billion. It will actually divide by 1,073,741,824. And so you will find that when the flash drive says 16 gigabytes, the manufacturer says 60 gigabyte, your OS will say less than 16 gigabytes. As you can see, 2 to the 20th power is that, not a million. So just be aware of that. So let's get back to our converting within metric scales. The one in yellow are the more important ones that you really need to learn. Micro, which is this, it is 10 to the negative 6, which is 1 millionth. Milli is 10 to the negative 3, which is 1,000. Centi is 10 to the negative 2, which is 100th. Deci, you may learn that for math, but it is hardly ever used, but it is 1/10. Going up from the base unit, there is deca, not much used, but we will use it in this video. Hecto, which is 100. So deca is 10, hecto is 100. Kilo is much used. Symbol is K, 10 to the third power, which is 1,000. Mega is much used. 10 to the sixth, it is a million. And giga is much used. 10 to the ninth, and it is a billion. So you really have to learn those in yellow here, and to a lesser extent, the ones in white. Now, these are prefixes that you need to learn. Example, if you have a base unit and it is meter, 21 decameter, which is DAM, the symbol for decameter is DA. Then you have 45 hectometer, that's 45 times 100 meters. And you have 5 kilometers, that's 5 times 1,000 meters. 2 megameter, that is 2 million. This M actually means million, mega. And 6 gigameter, that G means billion. But megameter and gigameter are not normally used with meter. Mega and giga are more commonly used as gigahertz and megawatts. Going down, you have 5 centimeter that is used, that is 5 tenths of a meter, 5 tenths of a meter. Then you have 56 centimeters, that is 56 hundredths of. You may have 45 millimeters, that's 45 thousandths of a meter. And if you have 25 micrometer, that is 25 millionths of a meter. Now the base unit could be any quantity that does not have these prefixes. For example, meter, gram, amperes, watts. Basic principle: to carry a smaller unit to a larger one, always divide by the factor difference. So if you're going from centimeter, which is a smaller one, to a bigger one up here, which is kilometer or kilometer, you will divide by the factor difference. These prefixes here are arranged in order from largest to smallest. So I used that term factor difference just now, and you may be wondering, well, what is a factor difference? So let us say we are dealing with giga something, say gigawatts, and we want to convert it to microwatts, or the other way around. We have microwatts and we want to carry it to gigawatts. So between these two, we have to determine what is the factor difference. Well, the factor difference is 10 to the 9th, which is this here, minus negative 6. Now, if you do that, 10 to the 9 minus negative 6, this here becomes positive, and it becomes 10 to the 15th power. So the factor difference, always subtract the index of the smaller unit from that of the larger one. That is to find out how many smaller units will make up one of the larger unit. In other words, you divide the larger unit by the smaller unit, and since we are dealing with indices, you subtract the indices when you are dividing. So the basic principle: if you want to carry a smaller unit to a larger one, you will always, there is no exception, divide by the factor difference. And on the other hand, if you want to carry a larger unit to a smaller unit, you will always multiply by the factor difference. So we will look at several examples. In all cases, the factor difference is always positive, always. So let's look at a few examples, 10 examples to be specific. We want to convert 305 centimeters to meter. You would see centimeter is down here, and the base unit, which would be meter, which would be here. So we are going from here to there. What is the factor difference? The factor difference is 10 to the 0 minus negative 2, which gives us 10 squared. We are going from a smaller to a larger. So we will divide, always divide when you go from a smaller to a larger, which means that we are going to divide this 305 by 10 squared, or 100. And so there's a square here, you're dividing by that, you shift this point 2 places, and you get 3.05 meters. So from a smaller unit to a larger unit, your answer must be smaller than the number you began with. So we began with 305 and we ended up with 3.05. Example 2. Convert 3,560 grams to kilograms. Let's see where those are. So grams is here, that's a base unit. You're going to kilograms, you're going up here. So we will subtract from that. We are going to subtract this to get the factor difference. And since we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we will divide. So let's see what the factor difference is. 10 minus 0. So we get 10 to the 3rd power, which is 1,000, which is 8,000. So we will have to divide by 10 to the 3rd power. So divide by 1,000. There is a 3 here. When you divide, you shift the place to the left. 1, 2, 3. And our answer is 3.56 kilograms. Remember, from a smaller unit to a larger unit, your answer must be smaller. So remember, we went from 3,560 and now we get 3.56. Example 3, convert 7,890 micrometer to centimeter. So let's see where we are and where we are going. We are at micrometer, 10 to the negative 6, and we are going to centimeter, 10 to the negative 2. We are going to subtract this negative 6 from that negative 2, and we get 10 to the 4th power. In other words, it takes that amount of micrometer to make 1 centimeter. So our factor difference is 10 to the 4th power. We are going to divide by 10 to the 4th power. There's a 4 here. You move this point 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and you get 0.789 centimeters. Remember again, you are carrying a smaller unit to a larger unit. Your answer must be a smaller number than the number you began with. That's example 3. Example 4, convert 48,560 millivolts to kilovolts. So let's see where we are and where we need to go. Millivolts is here, 10 to the negative 3, and kilovolts is up here, 10 to the 3rd power. So we are going to subtract this from that. In effect, we are subtracting the indices. In effect, we are dividing. So let's see, our factor difference is 10 to the 3rd power minus negative 3rd power, and we get 10 to the 6th. So our factor difference is 10 to the 6th power, which is a million. It means it takes a million millivolts to make 1 kilovolt. So obviously we will divide by a million. So we divide that number by 10 to the 6th. We move our point 6 places, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, add a 0. So we get this answer in kilovolts. Again, if you are going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, your answer must be a smaller number than what you began with. Example 5, convert 548,560 milliwatt to gigawatts. All right, let's see where we are. We are here, milliwatts. We want to convert that to gigawatts, that is here. Well, we need to find our factor difference. And since we are going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we will divide. And our answer must be smaller than the number we have here. Must be smaller. Let's see our factor difference. 10 to the 9th power minus a negative 3. That two negative would give us a positive, so we add a 9 and 3 and we get 12. So our factor difference is 10 to the 12th power. So we will divide by 10 to the 12th, and you actually get this answer. If we are dividing this by 10 to the 12th, which is, we have to shift the point 12 places to the left. Now it is easier to set it up as standard form scientific notation, which we will learn about in a few videos from now. So smaller unit to larger unit, your answer must be smaller. Convert 4.5 kilometers to meters. Now we are going from large to small. So kilometers is up here, meters is the base unit, is down here. So instead of going up like we were doing just now from small to large, now we are going from large to small. And in that case, we were dividing by the factor difference. In this case, obviously we will have to multiply by the factor difference. So we are at kilo, and we want to go to the base unit, which is meter. So we are going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. Now we will multiply. The factor difference you find the factor difference the same way that we were doing all along the line. So 10 to the third power minus 0 power, and we get 10 to the third power. So now 4.5 meter, we are going to multiply that by 10 to the third power, because it takes that amount of meter to make a kilometer. And when we do that, we move this point 3 places now to the right, and so we get 4,500 meters. In this case, your answer will always be larger than what you began with. So we began with 4.5 kilometers, and now we are ending up with 4,500 meters. Next example, convert 3.1 meter to centimeter. Okay, it is meter, so it is a base unit, and we are going to centimeter. Let's see what is our factor difference. We will always divide that one by this one, always divide the larger one by the smaller one, and in this case, since we are dividing indices, we just subtract them. So 10 to the 0 minus a negative 2, 2 negative here, you will add, and so you get 10 squared. So the factor is 10 squared. It takes 100 centimeters to make 1 meter. So 3.1 meter multiplied by 10 squared. Now we are multiplying, so we'll shift this point 2 places to the right, 2 places, and so we get 310 centimeters. So you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. Your answer must be larger than the number you began with. So we began with 3.1 and we ended up with 310. Next example, convert 2.8 decimeter to micrometer. So where are we? We are here, decimeter. Where are we going? We're going to micrometer, which is down here. So we get our factor difference, and then we will multiply by that. So how do you get your factor difference again? You always divide a larger unit by the smaller unit, and since we are dealing with indices, that means subtract them. So 10 minus 1 minus a negative 6. Those two minus would give us a plus. So you get negative 1 plus 6, and you get plus 5. So our factor is 10 to the 5th power. 2.8 decimeter multiplied by 10 to the 5th micrometer per decimeter. And since we are multiplying and we shift the point 5 places, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have to add a bunch of zeros. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We actually get 280,000 micrometer. Remember, we said you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. Your answer must always be a larger number than what you began with. We began with 2.8 and we ended up with 280,000. Example 9, convert 2.15 kilometers to millimeters. So again, where are we beginning? We are beginning from here, kilos, and we are going to milli there. Again, we are going from a larger unit to a smaller unit. We will have to multiply by the factor difference. Let's find our factor difference. 10 to the third power divide by 10 to the negative third power. As I said, we are dealing with indices, so we will just subtract the indices. 3 minus minus 3. By now you know that would be 10 to the 6th power. So it takes 10 to the 6th of this millimeter to make 1 kilometer. 2.15 kilometers multiplied by 10 to the 6th millimeter per kilometer, and you get 2,150,000 millimeters. This answer here must always be larger than this because you are carrying a larger quantity to a smaller one. 10. Convert 1.68 gigawatt to microwatt. All right, where are we? We are here, gigawatts, and we want to go to microwatts, that is way down here. You're carrying a larger to a smaller, you will have to multiply by the factor difference. Let's see what the factor difference is. You always divide the larger factor by the smaller factor, which means you will subtract the indices. So 9 minus 6, which becomes 9 plus 6, and you get 10 to the 15 power. So it takes 10 to the 15 microwatt to make 1 gigawatt. 1.8 gigawatts times 10 to the 15 microwatt per gigawatt, and that will give us this large number. We converted it into scientific notation, standard form. So this is a much larger number, 15 times larger number than the one we began with. So, how well did you learn this? I have a table here with 10 items. There are some given units, and we want to know what the converted units will be. Recall I told you that you need to learn this table. So, 3,400 meters to kilometer, we are going from a small meters to kilometers 3, we're going from a small to a large. So if we subtract from that 3, we subtract this 0, we will get 3. So our factor difference is 10 to the third power. We have to divide. We are going from a small to a large. We have to divide. So if we divide that by 10 to the third, we move the 0.3 places, and we get 3.4 kilometers. Next one, we're going from grams to kilograms. We're going from grams, base unit, to kilograms, which is basically the same thing that we did for the first one. And so 3 minus 0, that's the indices, and we get 3. So again, we get 10 to the third power. We have to shift this point 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, and we get 0.45 kilograms. Third one, we have this amount of watts to carry to megawatts. So we are going from small. So we are going from watt, which is our base unit, to megawatt, which is up here. So 6 minus this 0 here will give us 6. So our factor difference is 10 to the 6th. We're going from a small to a large. We have to divide by a million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 to the 6th. And we get 5.6 megawatts. Centimeter to meter. So we are going from centimeter, which is down here, -2, to meter, which is a base unit. So 0 minus -2 will give us +2. So we are going to have to divide by 10 squared. We shift that point 1, 2 places, and we get 64.5 meters. Next, micrometer to kilometer. Okay, micrometer is down here. Kilometers is up here. So we are going from 10 to the -6 to 10 to the third. So we divide the larger factor by the smaller one, which means we have to subtract the indices. So 10 to the third minus -6, which will give us 10 to the ninth. So we have to divide by 10 to the ninth. We have to move that place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have to add 2 zeros here, and we get 0.0047 kilometers. Next, 1.45 gigawatts to watts. So we are going from gigawatts to watts. Is a base unit. It has no prefix in front of it. And so we are going from 9 index to 0 index. So that is very simple. 10 to the 9th power We have to multiply because we're going from a larger to a smaller. So we have to shift this point 9 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we have to add 7 zeros. So 1, 4, 5 with 7 zeros. 3 and 3, 6 and 1, 7, 0. Next, kilogram to grams, kilogram to grams. So we are here, kilograms, and we are going to grams, which is our base unit. So from 10 to the third to 10 to the 0, subtract the indices, we get 10 to the third. So we have to multiply this by 10 to the third power. So we shift the point 3 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, because we add a 0 there, and we get 3,560 grams. Next one, 3.45 meters to millimeters. We are going from a large to a small because milli means 1,000. So we are going from meter, a base unit, we're going from a base unit meter to millimeter, which is 10 to the negative third. So 0 minus negative 3 would give you 10 to the third power. So since we're going from a larger to a smaller, we have to multiply. So we need to shift this point 3 places. Remember 10 to the third, 1, 2, 3. And so we get 3,450 millimeters. Next, 6.7 kilometers to millimeters. Now we are going from kilometers, which is here, to millimeters, which is down here. Our factor difference, of course, would be, the index would be 3, that 3 minus this negative 3, which will give us 10 to the 6th. So we are going to multiply this number here by 10 to the 6th. We need to move this point 6 places to the right. That 7 will take one of the 6 places, and you add 5 zeros. So 6, 7 with 5 zeros. And finally, 2.4 millimeters to micrometer. So we are at millimeter, which is here, and we are going to micrometer, which is here. So we are moving from a larger to a smaller. We will therefore have to multiply by our factor difference. And what is our factor difference? Negative 3 minus a negative 6, which would give us negative 3 plus 6, which would give us 10 to the third power. So we will need to move this point 3 places, which would give us 2,400 micrometer. Still, if that doesn't suffice, you could look over the video again, or we can look at the review again. So I said, first, you will need to memorize this table. Don't try to memorize everything one time. You could try to memorize the units that are smaller than the base unit, like deci, centi, milli, and micro. That's only. And once you learn that, you memorize the 5 that are larger than the base unit, which would be deca, notice DA, hecto, kilo, mega, and giga. These 3 are the more popular ones. So you can learn it in part, but learn it, please. Larger units are at the top, 10 to the 9, 10 to the 6, go down 10 to the negative 6. To carry a smaller unit to a larger one, divide by the conversion factor or the factor difference to ensure that your answer is smaller than the given number. So if you're carrying a smaller unit to a larger unit, you will divide. Of course, if you are carrying a larger unit to a smaller unit, you will multiply by the factor difference. Last reminder, if you have 4,500 centimeters and you want to carry that to hectometer, so centimeter is here, hectometer is here, our factor difference will be 10 to the second power minus power of negative 2, which will be 10 to the 2 minus a minus 2, which will give you 10 plus 2, which will give you 10 to the fourth power. So our factor difference between here to there is 10 to the fourth. Since we are carrying a smaller unit to a larger unit, we will divide, and that will give us 0.45 hectometer. Conversely, if you're carrying 2.1 kilometer per centimeter, so we are at kilometer here, and we are going down to centimeter here, is our factor difference, as you could see, is 10 to the third power minus a negative 2, and that will give us 10 to the fifth power. Since we have to get a larger answer, we must multiply. And so we multiply 2.1 by 10 to the fifth. We shift that point 5 places to the right. That one will take one of the places, so we add 4 zeros. So 2, 1 followed by 4 zeros. Hopefully that should suffice. So the metric scale is based on powers of 10. That makes it fairly easy, except you have to learn that table. There were some prefixes that we need to learn. That is probably the hardest thing about this. Giga, mega, kilo, hecto, deca. All of those are larger than the base unit. And then you go down to deci, which is 110, centi, 100, milli, 1000, and micro, 1 millionth. And that brings us to the end of video 2 of this objective 8 in section 1.